It's January the 5th, 2024. I'm going to be your host tonight, Dana Durnford. And you can call in at 709-589-4406. 709-589-4406. We got a massive crew here tonight of one viewer. Hello, I hope you're doing well. We're going to cover Japan's nuclear meltdown. Any idea why my was saying 1 hour, 4 minutes, 37 seconds? But I just started the stream. It's been, the preamble been streaming for 5 minutes, 37 seconds. We got a poll: did Japan lie about the Noto earthquake severity? And that was resulting in many deaths to protect the nuclear industry. Because that's exactly what happened. And so we got a lot of news to get through. I just want you to realize Fukushima is not very far away. These reactors are very, very brittle, and they can start a criticality and cause a massive amount of radioactive fallout to cover the entire planet in just short order. Remember, these reactors actually blew up in 2011. There's nothing left of the buildings. They're just these little stumps. What they done was put covers over them. Then the media came out and claimed that they were at the top of the buildings that still don't exist. So there was 865,000 extra cancers in the first year. Yet the official story is nothing got out of these buildings, only 2.3 grams, or 2.2 grams of tritium. It always takes me a minute to get up to speed. The radioactive plume covered the entire planet in just... this model shows 20 days of radioactive fallout. At the end of 20 days, the whole planet is buried in perpetual radioactive fallout. South Korea's physics professor of nuclear and quantum engineering says it was equal to 2.2 grams of tritium, and that the discharge is like throwing 3 grams of sugar into the ocean. They picked up 30 million one-ton bags. 30 million. And my last video was 12 seconds short, 12 hours later. Every day at 12 hours, my videos, the comment sections will finally show up. Yesterday it was 16 hours for the comment section showed up. That's the first time I've seen it that long. Let's get after it. We got lots of little information to cover. Hi, everybody. And we have some big revelations coming out of Japan. I'll just do some recaps of a couple of them. Japan's earthquake cast a cloud over the nuclear plants. This picture is from 2012 of the Kashiwazaki plant that they're planning on restarting. That's very close to the fault lines that have erupted many times. There was over 600 aftershocks. So they reported water spilled. This is again, you hear them connotations of water spilling, so-called spilling from the nuclear fuel pools. The fuel pools are where they put the reactor cores. The reactor cores are still splitting atoms. If you lose water, they'll melt down, no different than Chernobyl or Fukushima. It'll be the exact same thing. They'll burn at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, maybe indefinitely. They don't need oxygen, and they'll consume everything around it, ionize and radiate, atomize and aerosol it, and release it into the environment, same as Japan is currently doing. It's been over 600 aftershocks. 600 aftershocks. And it sits atop where there's 4 converging tectonic plates. Just bear with me 1 second here. the thing with nuclear is you can't rush anything, right? You got to be methodical. There's no shortcuts in nuclear, as I like to say. I put this depiction together so you can kind of comprehend it a bit better, hopefully. So they got the Shika nuclear power plant, which some media was claiming had 2 running reactors that were shut down for maintenance. Apparently, they're not. That plant's been shut down. And this plant over here has been shut down for several years due to corruption, I guess it was. And both of them, you can see I put arrows over there to depict where they're to. And then you can see the Eurasian plate and the North American plate. And so why there should be an emergency rush to get those reactor cores and from the fuel pools and that far, far away from this spot. You're just cruising for them to melt down just like Fukushima. There's no excuses for building them on a fault line. If you're within 500 miles of a fault line, you're on the fault line. Scientists warn more aftershocks are expected, and another significant quake cannot be ruled out. Some aid had been delivered via sea instead of land, with Coast Guard boats reaching the ports on Wednesday, but larger ships have been unable to dock in some bays of the Noto Peninsula because the seabed is buckled up from the earthquake. That part of Japan actually rose up 13 feet and shifted more than a meter. It rose up 13 feet. 13 feet. Because it's on fault lines. And the majority of the people were, a ton of people were killed in Shika nuclear power plant area. Was a 7 out of 7 on the Japanese seismic intensity Shindu scale, which they only count to 7, right? So you got to multiply it by 1.428 to get the Richter scale. But 7 out of 7 is a 10 out of 10 on the Richter scale. King Charles has sorrow at the devastating loss of life in Japan's earthquake. Sorrow. How many children is dead in Palestine in the last 90 days? Like 10,000 or something? No sorrow there, I guess. How many children did Jimmy Savile rape and molest? Which was, we got pictures of him on numerous occasions with King Charles. There's over 1,100 just at the BBC building, right? There's 29,000 children die every day, dysentery, diarrhea, and pneumonia. We don't hear any sorrow for that. He's just another one of those trying to make himself pertinent. Scenes of loss play out across Japan. Now it's over 90 people dead. Close to 300 missing. You're past the 72-hour window. Let's look at some of these pictures again just to reflect. Total devastation. And you don't see any heavy equipment, no fire trucks. You don't see any. Now, they could have come in. The military could have been there. They could have flew in with 700 helicopter loads of soldiers in just 3 or 4 days. No problem. They didn't. You got skyscrapers falling down. So this is not your run-of-the-mill earthquake. You got huge damage. You had tsunamis, actual tsunamis, that washed away all kinds of homes and businesses and infrastructure. Lots of boats were wrecked and sunk and tossed up on the land. This is real chaos. This is real chaos we're talking about. So why didn't they rush there to help them? China offered endless support. America got a military base there. They offered endless support. Japan refused to allow anybody else to go in there. How come? There is 2 nuclear plants. One is in a community where there was a 7 out of a 7 on the Shindu scale, which is 10 out of a 10 on the Richter scale earthquake. And where 4,500 out of 5,000 homes dropped to the ground. like collapsed. But the mighty nuclear power plant that's 40 years old and is brittle withstood the test of a magnitude 10 out of 10. Of course it did. Only the Japanese can build something that can do that. The nuclear industry will kill everything just to protect its own image. It's got 80 years, and I've seen senators in the United States, for instance, claim that not a single human has ever died from nuclear. That's damage from the tsunami and the quake, but the tsunami washed right through all of this area, all the way back to the on the other side of the water in your top. The water at the top of your page, the tsunami also ran past inland, past here too. You can see the mud where that car in your top center is too. Look at all the mud on the road. A lot of times it's hard to spot stuff, right? That's the only reason I'm saying that. So there was holy smokes type damage. Hi everybody, hugs for everybody. Scenes of loss play out across Japan coastline. After quake kills 84, it's over 90 now, right? And I know it's Saturday morning, and I'm just going to run through this, but I can't skip through stuff, but I can run through it, so to speak. Right? We don't have to. Normally, I'll zoom in on all kinds of pictures, and there's no need to. This is 4 videos on this earthquake, so this is not your average earthquake. In fact, when was the last time I'd done 4 videos in a row on an earthquake? That should tell you how bad this earthquake actually was. As a critical 72-hour window of time to find those still unaccounted for expires. And now the nuclear industry, cannot survive another nuclear meltdown. They can't survive another nuclear meltdown. And this is why I'm very suspicious of what we're seeing. Japan wasn't let the Americans go in with all kinds of help. Japan didn't go in themselves. How come? Because was there radioactive fallout? Did Japan lie about the Noto earthquake severity, resulting in many deaths to protect the nuclear industry? Like, I'm so confused that to say that they couldn't reach the Noto peninsula when a helicopter can reach anywhere. And that all the media came out on the first day, because we covered it and we've showed the pictures, with pictures from 2011 that was really salacious, and they got millions of views. They had hundreds of thousands on their live streams. And none of this makes sense. We've been doing this for years and years and years. And we've never seen the media act that particular way where they drew everybody's attention and kind of poisoned them by showing them fake pictures. And then people kind of lost interest, right? You can see today I got 9 people on my show, right? And they still haven't reached all kinds of spots, particularly where the nuclear power plant was. Where 4,500 homes out of the 5,000, 90% of the homes collapsed. And the average person can't comprehend if a nuclear meltdown happened, right? Like, if... the reality of it is, why aren't they letting the Americans and the Chinese help them? They won't go there themselves for some reason, but they have the capacity. They're saying the roads are impassable, but they got helicopters. Why don't they want helicopters flying over Sika, where that nuclear power plant is, to where they had a 10 out of 10 on the Richter scale earthquake on New Year's Day? Very suspect, isn't it? I'm not saying it happened. I'm just saying it's very suspect. You got to give me that. Will you give me that? That it's very suspect that the very community where the most damage was to, where there's 4,500 out of the 500 homes, not counting the businesses, have collapsed, has got no rescuers whatsoever that also happens to have a nuclear power plant? I don't know, maybe my critical thinking skills are not what they used to be, but I'm very suspect. Rescuers were battling against poor weather condition. Like in emergency, it seems in a war they can go anywhere, but in emergency they can't. to reach at least 700 people in areas of cities of Wajima, Shizu, which have been cut off due to the roads destroyed in an earthquake. But we haven't seen any footage from Shika, Shika. And remember, it doesn't belong there. Let me bring up that model I was using earlier for you. I'm very confused that nobody's got into Shika. And we complained about this in the first two videos in this event, right? Mondays and Tuesdays video. Because Shika, or was it Suzu, got the 4,500 homes damaged. I'm sorry. There are still many people whose safety is unknown, but we still haven't got no footage of the Shika. Nobody's been there. Nobody's been in Shizu. Where they got the nuclear dumps holding sites to there? Those focusing on the expiry of the 3-day window in which victims of earthquakes can still be pulled alive from underneath collapsed buildings, saying there were many people still awaiting rescue. There was many people still awaiting rescue. And in my last show, we had 165 people, but I only had 8 views when the show was over. 50 thumbs up. And if those nearby nuclear power plants would have been running when that earthquake came through, the original one, they would have melted down, wouldn't they? For sure. Not maybe, but for sure. We will use every means possible to check and rescue areas where roads are cut off, but they didn't, did they? And there's people out there, media out there now asking the question, how come Japan didn't go into some of those wastelands? And we're 4 days in. So finally, at the end of 4 days, they sent like 7,000 soldiers. But what were they waiting for? The National Police Agency said was working with other national and regional authorities, making every effort to reach the victims. But they're not, were they? A helicopter, not helicopters, but a helicopter is being dispatched. This is day 4. And if you need help, wave at the helicopter, flash a light, the agency wrote on Twitter. A lot of these places got no internet. The agency wrote on his post on X. None of it makes any sense. We've seen their response to the Japanese, and it's very stoic. They rush in, they go to hell, they're climbing around these earthquakes, they bring all kinds of equipment. You got China, you got India, you got many different countries, Canada, you got America, immediately came out and offered assistance. And Americans got a military base there. They could have flooded that place with rescuers. How come that didn't happen? What is it they don't want people to see? What is it they don't want foreigners to see, I wonder? The only reason you wouldn't let them come in is like China. You wouldn't let China come in if there was a nuclear meltdown. You wouldn't let the Americans go in there if there was a nuclear meltdown. The Ministry of Defense said it was stepping up its disaster response 4 days later. 4 days later! It was 24 hours for any footage really came out, wasn't it? They put out all kinds of fake footage. And bring in relief supplies and heavy machinery by sea to repair and clean roads linking the Noto peninsula. They could have came in, like the locals could have took graders and bulldozers and backhoes and dump trucks and scooped up soil and built a temporary bridge or leveled out the areas to get onto the current bridges that where the earth had dropped. Could have been done. They could have went in, and wherever the road was torn apart, this is what they're going to do anyway. They would have just ripped apart the stuff that popped up and filled in any gaps there. They would have built their way in there. It would have been just impressive. It would have been a circus. The media would have had a frenzy on it. We didn't see nothing. It was like they actually abandoned the people in the earthquake zone, didn't they? If you go back and you watch my January the 1st, my January the 2nd videos, my January the 3rd videos, that's what we're seeing. That's what we saw. That's what's documented. That's what the media reported on. I'm not being unfair. I'm not being harsh or critical. This is fraud, what the government is claiming that they went to finally 4 days later. This is racketeering. This is terrorists. What's the point of having people working for you and calling them a government when this kind of malfeasance, just repulsive, odious, just disgusting, revolting, non-emergency response? Like, you got people crushed by 4,500 buildings, for goodness sakes, and nobody still got footage out of there 4 days later. I'm really very, very confused by the whole story. So 4 days later, going to stepping up the disaster response by having all branches of the military work together and bringing in relief supplies almost 4 days later, 3.5 days later, and heavy machinery. They brought heavy machinery into Fukushima by the big lift helicopters right away. Today we do our best to save lives by integrating the ground, maritime, air self-defense forces, they wrote on Twitter. On a social media platform. Not released to the media, no interviews, nobody to hold accountable. The stroke of a keyboard, anonymous keyboard, on a social media site that the government maintains. And that's the official. And did you hire these people to be that? As a critical 72-hour window of time to find those still unaccounted for expires. Yeah, with no help. They let the 72-hour go, and there was no rescue. There was no supplies. There was no help. People are begging, crying, screaming, hurting, dying, buried alive, abandoned. Japan earthquakes cast clouds over nuclear plants. And they're worried about the nuclear plants, not about the victims that still haven't been rescued. The incredible arrogance, this hubris. And this is Reuters. 1,800 media is going to regurgitate the exact headline with the same author and the same paragraphs and the same pictures at the same time worldwide to justify their non-response. And a powerful earthquake hit Japan's coast New Year's Day, underscores the country's exposure to natural disasters, casting fresh doubts over a push to bring its nuclear capacity back online. You're talking about those plants are right alongside the tectonic plate. Why would that even be a consideration? How can you be that desperate? You're not that desperate. You're still alive. 12 years later, you managed to keep the power going without those plants. One of them's owned by TEPCO, for goodness sakes, to your right. I'm completely confused. I thought the Japanese, well, not really, I guess. I know the Japanese is scumbag government, moron idiots, and their society is denigrated to the point where they're completely dysfunctional. They're nefarious. They're malfeasance. It's shady. They're unworthy. They're blameworthy, but they're unworthy. They're unprincipled. It's atrocious. It's appalling. It's that there's no response after almost 4 days. They're still not there. And this is not an accident. They're one of the most technologically advanced countries on the entire planet. There's nowhere in that area they couldn't reach in 20 minutes if they wanted to. They can stage everybody where the roads and bridges are cut off and helicopter ferry them in there with these big 60 men at a time. Yet we don't see that today, do we? How come? It's the only time I've ever seen a response like this. I've never seen anything like this before. And neither have you. Nuclear power plants dot the coast of mountainous Japan, prone to earthquakes, tsunamis due to its location, the ring of fire in the Pacific Ocean. And you got nuclear plants, and there's no way they didn't know that the plants were right alongside of the fault line itself, where it's got a bing. The whole story's absurd. Monday's magnitude 7.6 earthquakes killed more than 80 people, destroyed infrastructure, left homes without power, struck days after regulators lifted the operational ban on Tokyo TEPCO's Kashiwazaki Karari, whatever the hell that is, nuclear plant. TEPCO hopes to gain the local permission to restart the plant. They'll start it anyway. What are you talking about? TEPCO, of all people. It should be all capital letters because it's an acronym, not a word. The utility was banned in 2021 from operating the plant due to safety breaches, including failure to protect nuclear material at the site, right? So it's been closed down for a couple of years. But the fuel pools are still full of reactor cores and can melt down the minute you lose water there. The Japanese public is still generally less positive towards nuclear power now than they were before the Fukushima disaster. As a result, public sentiment and potentially government policies like to be sensitive to any new power plant disruptions caused by the most recent quake or any future ones. After January the 1st quake, TEPCO reported water spilled from the nuclear fuel pools, but said the radiation levels were normal. Well, the fuel pools are splitting atoms. So each reactor core, and there's multiple reactor cores in the fuel pool, each reactor core is still splitting the same atoms that each reactor core would power, say, 1 million homes. It's still splitting those atoms that are used to boil water to power 1 million homes. How many atoms? It's absurd when you try to put that equation together. How many atoms you got to produce to boil water to power 1 million homes for a minute? The numbers are absurd. For 24 hours, the numbers, there is no mathematical equation that accommodates those particular numbers. That is now sitting, each of those reactor cores, multiple, up to 5 or 6 reactor cores in a fuel pool, with 2 fuel pools on the top of each building, splitting atoms. So this water per liter is catastrophic. There was an accident where they were transferring the water, and the water had, and they were bringing it on a forklift by drums at a time. One of the drums had a leak, and it was spilling on the pavement where the forklift was bringing it through the complex. They dug up all that pavement and replaced it. That's how radioactive that water actually is. And that boils off about 120,000 liters out of each fuel pool. There's 1,000 of them worldwide each day into your atmosphere. Those atoms now are liberated to the environment and they never go away. This is an omnicide machine. It destroys everything with replicating cells. So TEPCO, again, why would anybody want to believe a word TEPCO? Of course, TEPCO can go bankrupt and disappear, and the nuclear industry saves face, right? That's why they kept TEPCO around. Citizens felt that TEPCO could probably be able to restart reactors by the end of 2024, but the earthquake seemed to have reignited a sense of fear. And the shares fell 8% on Thursday, and the Hokuritsu Electric, whose idle Shika plant is located 65 kilometers. What's 65 kilometers? Let me do this for you. I'll bring it up on the screen in a second. 65 kilometers. 65 kilometers. 2 miles per hour. Well, let's 2 miles per hour. It'll give us the number quicker, right? going to be one of them days, is it? Sometimes you can't, I didn't bring it up on the screen, did I? My apologies. So that's 40 miles away. So 40 miles away from a 7 out of a 7 on the Shindu scale. And you're right alongside of a tectonic plate that ruptured and has 600 aftershocks and lifted the Earth up 13 feet in the air and moved it a meter. I can't remember which direction. Hopefully we'll get to that in a moment. These fuel pools at the very top of 190-foot buildings have to shake violently, sway violently for that kind of water to spill out, by the way. There's incredible stress on that building. What caused a deadly tremor? The tremor. Now, if you look up tremor, all you're going to find is handshakes, like tremor from some kind of neurological illness, right? If you go to Wikipedia, look up earthquakes, the word tremor is only used a couple times. It's also used for non-earthquake seismic rumbling. So they've had aftershocks, not rumbling. 600 aftershocks. These are earthquakes. So tremor is being used, and we've talked about this from day one, January the 1st. Why is this word being used in the context where it's not appropriate? Why is there no rescuers getting in where the nuclear power plant is to? Why is there no rescue workers anywhere in that area whatsoever almost 4 days later? I hope these are all legitimate questions. Yeah, the Shindu scale, and the Shindu scale is shaken, right? It's a shallow earthquake, it's appropriate. But you got 600 aftershocks. You got 400 houses that have 4,500 houses that have collapsed just in one area. If that's not a 10 of a 10 earthquake, what actually is? We got landslides, we got documentation, you 100% unequivocally will compare them together. They are the same. And Taiwan uses the same scale. And when you look at Taiwan's earthquake, multiple skyscrapers tipping over, the earth rupturing. We're talking 13-foot rupture. 13-foot rupture along hundreds and hundreds of miles. When was the last time you seen an earthquake like this that was just a lousy 7.6? Anybody want to point that out for me? To suggest that they're not one and the same is ridiculous. This is hundreds of miles of ruptures we're talking about. We're on tectonic plates on top of that. And not to equate them the same is just completely dishonest. The seismic activity in Japan is a result of constant grinding of the tectonic plates. But the recent quake, they said, in Noto peninsula operates under a different mechanism. It's right on the tectonic plates, for God's sakes. Rescues in Japan continue to search to find survivors of the New Year's quake and claimed now it's over 90 lives. We know it's a hell of a lot more than that. There's 4,500 homes they haven't got to yet. Name the last time 4,500 homes collapsed in an earthquake. The Noto Peninsula is nearly 600 aftershocks, not tremors, not sonic booms underground, but aftershocks, heightening concern about potential additional damage to the infrastructure. Additional damage? You got 600 aftershocks. How are you going to get in the buildings? In the building, you go in and try to rescue somebody or look for somebody, and the building's shaking Are you going to keep going, or are you coming back out? If you got 600 of them, how many aftershocks does it take to lose your nerve? If you're a rescuer and in 4 days you got to abandon your search and rescue because of 600 aftershocks, because you're on a fault line. On January the 1st, the west coast of Japan was struck by a massive magnitude 7.6 earthquake. 7.6 has never been described as massive before. The strongest quake to hit the area in over a century. You busted up the highways for hundreds of miles. You lifted that part of the country up 13 feet in the air. 600 aftershocks from a shallow earthquake. The idea of the Shindu scale is to disguise a severe event. Japan, a nation accustomed to the tremors, you can't call these tremors because they're just rumbling, they're not earthquakes. And they've been doing this unbelievable in the last 4 days amount of times. Movements of the earth are not tremors, they're earthquakes. Has once again been reminded of his precarious position atop of 4 converging tectonic plates. 4 converging tectonic plates. The seismic activity in Japan is a result of constant grinding of the Pacific plates beneath the North American plate, known as subduction. This geological interaction was responsible for the country's largest recorded earthquake, a 9.1 tremor. You can't call a 9.1 a tremor. Tremor, I just showed you the Wikipedia, the mainstream media's definition of tremor. It doesn't apply in this context. Right? Using the word tremor and Shindu scale are the same. They're meant to downplay what's happening and draw your attention away. That's the nuclear industry. Unlike the eastern earthquakes, the tremors, aka earthquakes, are caused by faults within the plate itself, which slip due to build-up stress from the tectonic plates pushing against each other. That's an earthquake. It's a slip on a massive scale, but it's an earthquake in the scales that are conventional to us. The main quake believed originated from a reverse fault stretching 150 kilometers beneath the peninsula, followed by 600 aftershocks, and raises concerns about the stability of the region. In the wide source area, the wide source fracture, hundreds of miles, multiple fault ruptures inside the plate triggered these, and to call them tremors again is completely dishonest. It's completely disingenuous. Rescue efforts are hampered by aftershocks, pose a danger to rescue teams and structural integrity of the buildings that are already fragile. But the rescue effort is almost non-existent, except for local. Where is the international? Where is Japan? More aftershocks are expected, and possibly another significant quake can't be ruled out. Japan's earthquake, barely a building is untouched. Barely a building is untouched. And the rest were burnt to the ground. In the city of Wajima, there's barely a building untouched. We've seen one man desperately clawing at a small area with his hands. Another lady described how she survived the initial earthquake only to lose everything just a few hours later to flames. It's hard to imagine what she's been through. She heard her trapped neighbors calling for help, couldn't do anything. The flames were spreading, and Japan's military and rescue was nowhere to be seen. I don't see him in any of the pictures a single time in 4 days. And we're covering everything we can find. In the city alone, 11,000 are sheltering evacuation centers. Still got no water, still got no gas, still got no electricity. Local leaders have been sharply critical of how little aid has made its way in. How little. There's local vendors, like food truck vendors, have driven into the area because they're there, and are feeding the people because the international communities never showed up, despite offering to show up. The Americans said, we can load and go with helicopters and water and blankets and food and tents. We can do it right now. We can be up and running and landing there and full rescue operation in hours. We are good to go, sir. Give us the permission and we'll do it. Japan's like, no, we're okay. Well, they're not. They're not even there. China said, we can help you. They're like, no. We got a nuclear plant in that zone. It was a 7 out of a 7, which is a 10 out of a 10. It's the same damage. Like when it comes to rescuing, you put all your differences aside, right? Don't you? That's where you're going to drop your difference. Yeah, you got a lot of political ins and outs and this and that and everything else. You can make up all kinds of excuses you want. But when it's an accident, the people that are going there are not going there to be political. They're going there to pass out water, pass out blankets. It's pretty benign. It's pretty harmless. It's pretty innocuous. Very helpful. Very urgent. They don't need help tomorrow. They need help today. They actually needed help 2-3 days ago. They could have, like, in certain situations, they can just fly over and drop food down, drop water down, little parachutes, right? They didn't even do that. They didn't want someone flying over the area. There's no one flying over the area. And anybody, the media that was taking drone shots, that was censored before they were allowed to release anything. And there wasn't very much of that, was it? And just a regular apologist for the industry themselves. One food vendor we met drove 6 hours from his home in a nearby city to give out hot meals. He made 1,500 portions of fried noodles, and in 4 hours it was all gone. 4 hours he fed 1,500 people. You know why they were starving? Because the military didn't show up. Where'd he go? Where's the fire trucks? Where are the bulldozers? Where are the backhoes? Where are the excavators? Where's the jaws of life? Where's the ambulances? What's going on? There is only one thing that can keep everybody out of an area like that I know of anyway. It's a nuclear meltdown. That's the only reason you would avoid that area. I hope I'm wrong. But it's not looking good, is it? One food vendor we met drove 6 hours. There's only one route to it. Well, the Americans, the Japanese, the Chinese, anybody with a helicopter could have flown in all kinds of water and food and blankets and medical aid and doctors and nurses and oxygen for the elderly. There's just, I don't get it. I don't understand what's going on. But, some good news. A famous sports player and your family is okay. So let's go back to sleep. How arrogant for the media to come out with that story when people are still missing. A Springboks player, Chelsea Kobe, and his wife, Layla, and the 3 children are in Tokyo, 200 miles away. And they're safe, and they're sorry they didn't reach out to their admirers. They're not volunteering to go help the victims. We're okay, have a nice day. The tremor was felt in Tokyo. Like, instead of using the word earthquake, they're using the word tremor. Instead of using the Richter scale, they're using the Shindu scale. Instead of using common sense, they're using divide, saying it's a geopolitical issue. That's why no one was there to rescue. They couldn't make up their mind who should do the rescue. They're going to have debated in Parliament next week, and then they're going to send in some help. Doomed Japan plan exclusive. Really? That's been true to media 3 minutes after it happened. That never stopped in the media, right? Draw your attention away from the actual other tragedy. Nobody died in that plane crash. There was 5 Coast Guard died in the other one. They don't show you pictures of that. They show you the one where nobody died. And that gets more friggin' media attention than the earthquake does. Japan's earthquake, race against time to find survivors. Race against time? You haven't even started. When are you going to start? When are you going to go and start the clock? Start rescuing people? They're doing it today, apparently. 7,000 people or something, is it? But at least 179 others remain unaccounted for. There's a lot more than that, isn't it? There's 100 choke points and blockages in the prefecture's roads as of Thursday. Nothing that a couple of bulldozers and dump trucks and excavators couldn't have fixed in 24 hours. Me and a couple of my friends could have fixed that in a couple of hours. Made it passable for aid to get in there. And while that was happening, the military could have flown in several thousand people, staged them outside, and ferried in another 4,000 or 5,000 in the first 24 hours. Which would have been appropriate, wouldn't it? And they knew that. The Americans offered all the assistance they could hope for within 10 minutes of the earthquake. Why? Because they knew what happened, right? They knew this was nasty. I don't understand why no one is there to help. Compared to other disasters, the road situation in Wajima is very bad. I feel it's taken longer than usual for assistance to arrive, said a medical worker who assisted other disasters. I think we're all answering or asking that question today. Basics such as internet access, medical supplies, clean toilets were lacking. We have no running water. We can't wash our hands after going to the bathroom. That's day 3. The government has pledged it will be proactively provide supplies instead of waiting for a request from the locals. So they're saying the officials didn't ask for help, and that's why they didn't bring any help yet. And he said they're going to quadruple, not have, but going to quadruple the number of self-defense members with the rescue operation since Monday, putting the total number of rescues at 7,000. But we haven't seen that. We don't see that. There's no evidence of rescue. Some aid has been delivered via sea instead of land, but the larger ships can't go into the docks or dock in some bays because the seaboard bed is buckled up. At least they called it an earthquake that time. And Kushida pledged on Thursday, 4 days later, to tap roughly $28 million of the budget for the disaster relief. $28 million. You got one city there with 4,500 buildings collapsed, for goodness sakes. Why are you talking about money? Caused an intensity of 7, which is the largest of the Japanese Shindu scale, in Shiga town, an intensity of 6 plus 6 minus, many municipalities in the Noto peninsula. This is a huge, massive earthquake you're talking about. Anything that lifts the earth up 13 feet, over hundreds of miles, and dries up harbors so boats can't dock in them, and causes 600 aftershocks, and flattens thousands and thousands and thousands of buildings and burns hundreds and hundreds of other buildings and businesses. And this is the only drone video we've seen, isn't it? And it's not much. They turn around and they head back again. See the people there? Where's Where's the rescuers? Like anywhere in the background, we don't see any flashing lights. We don't see any ambulances. There's nothing. It's been abandoned. You see, Japan's nuclear, and then the despicable public relation firms for lobbying groups for the nuclear industry, like Nuclear Engineering International, says the nuclear plant's not seriously affected. We've seen so many of these headlines, eh? Why are they trying to make such a fuss over that? The non-regulatory agency, which is also known as the Japanese Nuclear Regulation Authority, said no irregularities were confirmed at nuclear power plants. This, except for the Skika plant, the smell of the burning near a transformer. They don't even have an actual, and they're the regulatory agency, the nuclear regulatory authorities, and they're telling you something that's so vague that the average person can't comprehend because they can't guess anything, right? Staff checking the area discovered a fire extinguisher system has been activated. No fire was detected, but the reactor's electrical supplies were disabled. Not partially disabled, they were disabled. They got power through the some other system, which is what, the generator? Because they lost power everywhere else. And cooling pools was used. Fuel is stored, continued to operate. It needs 120,000 liters a day or it melts down. Because it's going to boil that off into the environment. Each liter is going to be just a ridiculous amount of anthropogenic man-made isotopes per liter coming out of these fuel pools each day. And what's the number on that? There's 120,000. Let me do the math on this. So, you like this. This is fun. Check this out. So there's 120,000 liters. And divided by 1,440 minutes in a day. Equal 83 liters an hour. I'm sorry, 83 liters a minute. And 83 minutes a minute. Now multiply that by 1,000 fuel pools worldwide doing the same thing. That's 83,000 liters a minute. And divide that by gallons. That's 20,000 gallons. 20,000 gallons. Divide that by 45-gallon drums. There's 462 45-gallon drums of nuclear waste, high-level lethal nuclear waste, nothing but pure isotopes released into the atmosphere every minute. These are absurd numbers. And multiply that by 1,440 minutes in a day. We're talking about. And 666,666.6666666 45-gallon drums every 24 hours is released into the environment. That's pretty appropriate, actually, isn't it? Tokyo Electric Power Company, and like the toxicity per liter, because the fuel pools, the reactor cores are still splitting atoms. The amount in each liter is stunning. It's the quickest, easiest way to exterminate a planet without anybody understanding what's happening. It takes many decades, but the more fuel you create, the more quicker the extinction event starts to play out. And that's global warming, because all those isotopes for 80 years have never went away. They're still out there pulsing energy almost at the speed of light every second. The gammas, the alphas, the neutrons, the betas. And Tokyo Electric Power Holding, TEPCO, which is supposed to be in capital letters because it's not a word, it's an acronym, has 7 reactors all offline because they screwed up 2 years ago. So water from a used fuel pool has spilled. So, like, they use the word used fuel pool as if it's harmless. It's only about 2% of it's used, and the fuel is still splitting atoms. And it goes through the nuclear, what they call the fuel cycle. So reactors are about a fuel cycle. And then when the fuel comes out, it's producing so much plutonium that they can make nuclear weapons with it. But it has to go through the fuel cycle, and byproduct of it is energy. And that's how they lulled you into complacency. But that no abnormalities in the operations were detected, and 10 liters spilled from the Unit 2 reactor, and reactor 2, and 4 from reactor 7. Well, it's not coming from the reactor, it's coming from the fuel pools. And they know that. And the people that wrote it are supposed to be the best of the best in the world. So why were they so vague? And to suggest that only 10 liters come out of the pool is absurd. In order for 10, like, have you ever seen the videos of swimming pools that were splashing absurd amount of water during earthquakes? None of them was as big as this earthquake. TEPCO, which is absurd to suggest you can trust anything they say, said it is measuring the radiation levels. The Japanese government ordered more than 97,000 people in 9 prefectures. So if you're evacuating people from 9 prefectures, what does that tell us? Scenes of destruction from the earthquake were seen in Japanese coastal towns. Where's the rescuers? Where's the first aid? Where's the ambulances? Where's the heavy equipment? Where's the light and power guys? Where's the mechanical engineers? Where's the military? Where's the stuff left over, like, from all this? How come they're not gone in? This is 4 days later. What is going on here? And if they had a nuclear event, then that radiation would be showing up here in North America starting today and over the next week, less than a week. The whole continent would be covered in radioactive fallout, right? And so what you see over there, this is Fukushima Reactor 3 detonating. But the plume from Japan covered the entire planet in 26 days after the tsunami. If you take away the equation that the reactors didn't all blow up until the 6th or the 16th, then that leaves you 21 days. So that model on the bottom is 21 days of radioactive fallout from Japan. But the model is flawed. It's only based on venting. It's not based on the actual explosion behind me. And that we have studies of it showing up in North America in numbers that are catastrophic. I believe this plume model is based on 16 days of radioactive fallout. Let me just jump ahead. Yeah, that's 16 days. That's the 25th. That's 11 days. Or that's 14 days after the tsunami in Japan. So you got to take away 6 days because of the explosions and everything. 16 to the 20. So that's 11 days later of radioactive fallout. This model is based on 1 to 10 million atoms of cesium-137 per cubic meter of air. So as that model runs its course, 25 days later, the entire planet is buried in perpetual radioactive fallout. 4,600 soldiers of Japanese self-defenses were deployed to assist in search and rescue efforts as the temperatures hovered slightly above freezing. But the question is, why haven't we seen pictures of that? Right, we've seen some pictures like this, but obviously this is local firefighters and rescuers. UN Ambassador to Japan, the disgusting, despicable, maniacal Rahm Emanuel, whose legacy is disgusting, said Thursday the Japanese government accepted aid effort in the form of emergency supplies and support from U.S. troops stationed in Japan. So where are they, though? They haven't showed up. This is day 4. Japan is in a time, and we've covered all this stuff for the last 4 days, right? We're here to support them both civilian and resources, with resources, military, and logistics. Government officials report no major problems at any nearby nuclear power plants. Every other story actually has that sentence there. I don't really grab it enough times. But we've been doing this for so many years. Aftershocks continue to rock the coastal area. Aftershocks rock. Aftershocks rock coastal areas. Aftershocks shake the daylights out of aftershocks. Not tremors, but aftershocks. Loneliest man in Japan. Scenes of loss play out across Japan's western coastline after quake kills. It's well over 90 now, almost 100. All we got was a couple of rice balls, said an elderly man, cupping his hands in a tiny ball to show how small the meal was. He's staying with his wife at an elementary school in Pontus Evacuation Center. He was only given a tiny paper cup, half filled with water that vanished in a single sip. So where's the help? Where's the water? Why didn't they just airdrop water, food, resources in there like they've done everywhere else when they couldn't reach it? Why are they avoiding this area right by a nuclear power plant where we still have no footage from? Why is there 4,500 homes collapsed and we still have no footage of it? And they've been covering those headlines since day one, from the first few hours of the story. The main, more destructive quake, which flung him to the ground because it was such a large quake you can't stand up. So far, no major issues were reported in nuclear power plants, Dana. So stop fear-mongering. Dana. Stop being critical thinking, Dana. A magnitude 5.0 earthquake strikes off the coast of Saito, Japan. You know Saito, Japan, that island right across from where all the events are happening currently. Do we really believe it's a 5.0? Should we believe him? Because that's right alongside the fault line, right? Hang on. Let me see how right I am. I'd make mistakes like everybody else, but it's pretty rare. But I know you're going to make mistakes when you're only getting half-truths, and this is the very beginning of the story, right? You got to revise your story constantly. They purposely lied to us the first 2 days. And in hindsight, we have no problem proving this. So that island up there is pretty darn close to the tectonic plates. Same as those two nuclear power plants that put in Arrows, which are these two right here. In fact, Kashiwazaki plant is closer to the tectonic plates than the... And this earthquake was at a depth of 10 kilometers, like 6 miles. Here was the landslide. Let me get out of the way. We'll flick through this. We're almost through it all. This was a landslide. Showed up yesterday. Everybody looks at that house and look at all the mud coming. And there's a lady ran out of the house. And they blocked out a picture of her. Look at this. Oh, that's so nice of them. I don't think she would have minded the insurance company seeing it and her running away from her property. Her cars or insurance wouldn't mind having that picture. Landslide sweeps down a hillside and Japan's earthquake hit. Watch out, under rubble, hopes fade for survivors. These buildings, there was 4,500 buildings collapsed in just one area. At least 92 people dead and 250 so missing. You can't find the survivors if there is no race against the clock, because when you look at the pictures, where's the race against the clock till? We don't see rescuers in any pictures. We don't see ambulances. We don't see fire trucks. We don't see the military. We don't see anything. We don't see the government. We don't see... All the stories are telling us of abandonment. The powerful main tremor. Now they're describing the earthquake as tremors. And I showed you the difference earlier. Tremor. Tremor's got nothing to do with it. The closest thing it got to do with it is used for non-earthquake seismic rumbling. So to suggest that the powerful earthquake was a tremor is desperation to downplay it, isn't it? And here they call it an earthquake, not a tremor. Shifted the land by 13 feet. The land rose up 13 feet in places, moved sideways by over 3 feet. So the land popping up 13 feet, we got a lot of evidence of that. We covered a lot of that. And that even some of the harbors out there, the boats can't go into no more because the earthquake was drying out the harbors, so to speak. They got GPSs that can shift, that automatically or strategically across the country showed the earth rising up 13 feet. And Japan is situated at the convergence of 4 significant tectonic plates. And I showed you that stuff. At least 460 injured, 240 missing. One of the survivors says, our minds are blank. Japan fails its aging rural communities. That's the appropriate last headline, isn't it? Japan fails its aging rural communities. Surprise, surprise, I have the same sentiment. I'm doing the show really early. I'm not supposed to do a show on Saturday. I'm burnt to the ground. My brain is just exhausted. We got a snowstorm is going to strike here, probably started right now. It's going to be a heavy snowstorm, at times up to 10 centimeters an hour, apparently. Hopefully we don't get hit too hard. And I'm all bruised up because I had to get everything ready around here for the winter. So we're getting the tarp on the boat, putting up heaters in the shed, getting the plow sorted out, make sure I can just drive it in and out over the next couple of days. This goes on. I'm full of bruises. I'm old and broken man now, so to speak. At least today I am. Still very, very young at heart. James Lucid donated 200 yesterday. Bless your heart, James. My goodness. You have no idea how perfect that timing was, I don't think. And we had another donation for $25, and I got the wrong computer there, and I can't remember. I think it was Ron donated, if I remember correctly. I'll correct it on the next show. My apologies. Because I just glanced at the email and seen that there, right? So I didn't have time to memorize it. And that's it, I guess, for Saturday. I'm doing the show because these people have been abandoned. I don't have a right to take a day off or a couple of days off with all these people abandoned and with the possibility of something serious, a serious event taking place. I'm confused of why we don't have, and we talked about this on Monday's video, Tuesday's video, Wednesday's video, and today's video on this subject, on this event, of how peculiar it was that we're not getting footage, and that the first day they showed us all this old footage. You go back and watch my first video of the original headlines, the original pictures. All the media was out there pumping of fake pictures and fake story. So obviously something happened that they wanted to cover up. They wanted you to go look at it and not see what the picture showed you, get put off by that and not come back, right? That's what they were up to. They were trying to drive you away. I've never seen them do anything like that before, by the way. And that was a concentrated effort. We're going to close the poll down. You got 100% yes. Did Japan lie about the Noto earthquake severity? resulting in many deaths to protect the nuclear industry. We got 100% yes. We're in the poll there. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sue. Hi, Sue. Adam. Hi, Adam. Albert. Let me do a shout out. And Quinn. There's a 5.0 on the media scale. Ashley Lott. Hi, everybody. Good night, everybody. It was a good day, everybody. Michael Allport. I seen Colette there earlier. I know there's lots of people out there watching this later today. Hi for everybody. We got Joey, Wendy Cakes, and Port Angeles, who's sound asleep now, I would imagine. I love you too, honey. Thank you. And we got the poll complete. We got 16 likes. And when the video's over, go check the video. When this video is, I'm going to end it right a moment. I'm going to end the video here in a moment. I'll play that song again. And as soon as the video's over, in about 30 seconds, I'm going to end the show. I want you to go to my front page, refresh the page, and you're going to see I got no views. Because they're terrified of little old person telling the truth. So have a great day today, great day tomorrow. We'll see everybody tomorrow night, I would imagine. And we'll pick up this story, this terrible, horrible betrayal against the victims in this massive, massive, incredible, massive earthquake. Have a great day, everybody. Hugs for all the victims out there, too. Take care.